The reason I came to Riot 7 years ago was to make an MMO.
Wait, I'm sorry, what? Okay, I'm no math magician, but 2023 minus 7 equals 2016. They've been working on the Riot MMO since 2016. Huh?
An unannounced MMO prototype inside of Riot.
Oh, so wait, Riot has been wanting to make an MMO for at least 7 years now. Okay, that's crazy.
Massive parts of this company have been dreaming of making this game for our players for a long time. Obviously, Meryl trolled the world by asking whether an MMO should exist. The reason I came to Riot 7 years ago was to make an MMO.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is our brand new executive producer on the Riot MMO RPG, leaking huge details about Riot's plans for the MMO. He was hired 7 years ago to begin work on a Riot Games MMO prototype. That's almost half of Riot Games' lifespan as a company. Even Yetter said that.
Eventually, I know.
All of this footage is coming from Necrit's exclusive interview with the Riot MMO team. The interview panel consisted of executive producer VJ Tucker, game director Mark Yetter, art director Greg Fallis, and narrative writer Ant Reynolds-Lene. Now, obviously, I could just do a quick react video. I did it over on my stream about 5 times, but instead I wanted to take a closer look and break down the interview in a way that only about 10% of you appreciate, but is more consistent with the deep dives and digging that we like to do over on this channel. First off, this interview was a great introduction to our new Ghostcrawler replacement, VJ. Filling in for the executive producer position, VJ was able to command the interview and really show us what their plans are and how much they are all so incredibly passionate about this project. And while not a ton of information was actually shown in this interview, it was really great to see these 4 guys' faces just light up, being able to talk about a project that they're obviously also incredibly passionate about. On top of this, it was also just a great turn of events for the what has been nearly a year of radio silence from Riot Games regarding the MMO. So let's go over my notes and take a look at what I thought were some of the few takeaway moments that came from this interview. First off, how does the team feel about player feedback?
Things that we can do is listen to our players along the way and figure out when we should respond and integrate it in and when we shouldn't. Right. That's the hard part of our jobs, but definitely ignoring the feedback is us failing.
So it's impossible for us to give every person what they want, but really often there's a lot of similar themes, right? And when we reduce it to the sort of core of like, what is the fantasy that people are looking for? What is the experience? We can then, take that and say, what's the best version of that we can deliver? And even better, we're not just going to give people what they say they want. We're going to try and figure out how we can over-deliver.
So it does seem like they are very interested in receiving feedback regarding their game. It also does have a little bit of a Blizzard when asked if they would ever do a classic server vibe.
I think you do, but you don't.
The difference here is that they want to fully realize what the players want and then provide or over provide on that.
How can we get them something that blows their minds that is also, oh my God, that's exactly what I wanted. That's the dream.
After this, they were asked about factions and, more importantly, about splitting up the player base.
So there's this perfect saying I saw in one of the, a developer talk from one of the Zelda developers, which is, you can't just deliver exactly perfect realism or whatever. You're trying to shape something that feels real, feels believable, but is actually making the thing you want. Right. And so there are things that we want. We don't want, me and my best friend, we don't want people not to be able to play with each other. Obviously, that's like a bad, that's a problem. But we also want to, maybe capture the spirit and the kind of, one of the iconic elements of the League of Legends IP, where you've got this complex, factions, and there's, there's a lot of shades of gray, and there's a lot of interesting conflict, and there's a lot of, kind of ways that you or someone else might relate to different elements of it.
So that's a lot of words to basically say that they are looking and working very hard on delivering on that Runeterran fantasy of factions, but also that it's important to maintain accessibility and gameplay for all of their players. Now, one thing that worries a lot of people who are looking forward to the Riot MMO is that it's just going to be another World of Warcraft clone. And I think this is one of the best answers from this interview regarding just that thing.
I think it's really important that we look at what is working in the market and then also involve the expectations to see where we're going. And if you look at where WoW started, like classic MMO, I think all of us played many, many, many hours of classic WoW. And then you look at how the genre evolved over the course of post-classic WoW era, they were all chasing WoW. And so they're all looking at one specific thing and trying to make a better version of that thing. And now what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, like, okay, what went right during that period? And what has changed in the games industry and our players' expectations up until that point? And look at both of those lenses and craft something that feels like it's the right evolution of it.
They were also asked specifically regarding classic WoW and dedicated servers versus the more mega servers that we're seeing in current MMO titles.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think Mark nailed it early on when we were talking about trade-offs. This is like, ultimately, you can build games in different approaches, but they have really different trade-offs about that sense of identity and the sense of community that gets created. But then when you start to commoditize human interactions and like you're the same as any other bot that's walking by me, then you lose a lot of that. Mega server also has some risk and approaches. We actually have an engineer that worked on Guild Wars 2 and designed a lot of the mega server work. It has some of the flaws and risks in that space. And the one thing that we definitely don't want to do is try and solve these solutions for absolutely everybody. We do want to have opinionated takes that have some trade-offs, but a lot of that essence of community and people feeling important and actually having these interactions matter with other people, those are values that we're excited to chase.
Ultimately, I think we can kind of pull whatever we want from this. It says that they love this sense of community found in dedicated servers, but they also said that there's positives and negatives to both dedicated and mega servers. Really, the common thread here, and it's kind of the common thread in almost all of the answers we received in this interview, is that they're weighing the pros and cons to every single system and trying to provide the best possible gaming experience for all of us gamers. They were also asked what their approach is to segmenting the world off and what amount of the map of Runeterra we will see at the launch of the game.
Ultimately, one of the most important things for us is to realize the world of Runeterra that exists in our players' hearts. The path for this MMO in the long term will have that full world of Runeterra realized. So for us, it's just a question of how we get there, what the steps are, whether we start small, whether we start broad. We have some takes about where we want to go, but we have our North Star of like that full version of Runeterra, and we know we're going to get there. So it's just a question of the steps along the way.
So currently, right now, they don't know. They do know that they want to release the entire world eventually, but whether they release a small amount at launch or a large amount of the map is kinda up in the air for now. Finally, they were asked about the art style for the MMO. I think we kind of all know what the art is going to look like to some extent if we look at any other Riot Games game, but Greg Fellis did have this to say.
So, hopefully I can say excuse.
I don't know what you're going to say.
So we will be familiar, but something unique.
Yup, you heard it here first. The game is going to be familiar but unique. So much to process and think about, right? They wrapped up the interview talking about how so many people at Riot Games have been so excited about creating an MMO. They even hired VJ back 7 years ago to start work on an MMO that was eventually scrapped. But every person at Riot wants this game to succeed, and they are heavily invested in it. I would almost go as far to say that Riot Games in the next decade will be a company that has a MMORPG as the center and core of all of their games. Personally, I found it so interesting to know that Riot has been working on MMOs for at least 7 years now, and to think about all of the knowledge they may have gained working and scrapping different MMO titles to finally get to the point where they're excited to fully realize an MMORPG set in the world of Runeterra. Now, before you rush to the comments to tell me, oh, there's nothing in this interview, we learned nothing, blah, 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 blah. I agree. It's very interesting for me to see the team really light up and so excited about this title, but they didn't really tell us much, and I don't think they were really allowed to tell us much. That all said, though, I look forward to seeing what they do say to us in the future and reporting it all back to you. As always, thank you guys for coming out to my video. If you aren't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button, like the video, comment down below. Let me know when you think we're going to get some actual solid information about the MMO. And as always, my name is Spun, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.